Our JRPG starts, like most, with a generic village under attack. We are introduced to two of our main characters, a mysterious girl and hoodie guy. After the intro FMV, we are introduced to a few more characters. First is a character with too many polygons to not be a party member, talking to themselves on a cliff, followed by our main protagonist, Dart, reading a letter that gives us some basic backstory. Civil War. We are then attacked on our way back home by some soldiers, followed by the dragon that we saw earlier, and saved by the odd woman who continues to talk to herself as we run towards the village. Now that our mandatory 10-minute intro is over, we have our tutorial fight. One attack each and we move on. We discover that someone named Shauna has been taken to a place called Helena and fight tutorial fight number 2. Before leaving the village, we stop by a tombstone and grab a shiny rock. On the next map, we are introduced to the item and shop tutorial, before making our way through the hedge maze and into a quick flashback. My notes here just say assassin cock joke. We then make our way to Helena prison and sneak in on the back of the merchant's cart. Once inside, the merchant discovers us and calls the questionably dressed guards, who we quickly dispatch. After this, the merchant's cool and sells us some things. We then Metal Gear our way through the prison before coming to a tower where prison break is already taking place. After a short scuffle, we meet our best bro Lavitz, who agrees to help us find Shauna and escape. With Lavitz in tow, we make our way further into the prison, coming across a heavily guarded area we'll ignore for now, and a key just sitting on a box. With this key, we can unlock the next tower. While not stealing from the other prisoners, we find a heavily guarded cell. After beating the guards, we free Shauna and try to escape. Just before we make it out, we are stopped by Frugal, a large and in-charge head of Helena prison. This is our first real boss battle. We dispatch the normal wardens with ease, and in their place, Frugal summons senior wardens. These guys have double the HP, hit harder, have access to more abilities, and on death use a party-wide magic ability. Frugal himself is slow but hits hard with physical attacks, including boulder tossing, but we manage to punch our way through the boulders and escape on the horses. While making our escape, Lavitz takes an arrow to the knee, and we hide from the chasing guards in some tall grass. Side note, where did the horses go that we escaped on? We're not very far from Helena prison. We can still see it in the background. Anyways, we try to continue on our way to the capital when we come across a river that is moving too fast for us to cross. Turning back and exploring a bit more, we find an empty shack and take a rest while Dart gives us his backstory. 18 years ago, the village he lived in was attacked by something called the Black Monster. His mother and father were 100% certainly killed during the attack, and the only thing he could find of them was the small red stone memento that his father had. Break time now over, we find a dead tree that if we can find something to cut it down with, we can use to cross the river. Returning to the shack, we find an axe. With the axe in hand, we chop down the tree and do not stop it from falling down the cliff. Out of options, we return to the river, and what do you know? The tree has flown down the river and is now stuck, making a perfect bridge for us. Crossing the bridge, we come across a refugee family fleeing from the Empire and give them some food. Where the food comes from, I'm not entirely certain. We slip and slide our way into the caves, finding a new sword for Dart along the way. We make our way through the caves, fighting spiders, bats, slimes, orcs, and ugly balloons. We then spend too much time running in circles chasing some odd frog thing. For reward, we can get just grinding ugly balloons. Just before this minigame, there are some rock fireflies that can heal you indefinitely, making this a good place to finish out the additions we were working on. Once we are ready, we make our way to the final room of the caves and are ambushed by the Ouroboros. This boss is a bit more difficult than Frugal, having over double his health and inflicting poison with some attacks, making those poison guards we got from the ugly balloons in the frog minigame useful. If you let him go into phase 2, he will slither up to a high location where Dart and Lavitz can't hit him. Either throw some spells at him or guard and wait for him to come back down. Once Dart delivers the final blow on the bad translation snake, we are given another cutscene. The snake suddenly jumps up and tries to attack Shauna. However, a magical glow from Shauna disintegrates the snake. With that out of the way, we move on to the capital, Bale. Making a quick pit stop to grab a painting of Lavitz, we continue on to the castle. We take a quick detour to the side entrance and pick up a new weapon for Shauna, and check the fireplace for another Stardust. After looting the basement, we make our way upstairs to grab Stardust number 3, an active ring, and a bit of gold. I'm sure the royalty won't mind much. While doing all this, we take a secret path to the sewers to turn a wheel and open a door that we'll need later. We finally make our way to the king, where we learn a bit more about the Black Monster and the Dragon campaign, a war 11,000 years ago between humans, with the help of dragons, and the Winglies, a group of magical flying humanoids that enslaved the world. We also learn that the humans were led by a group of 7 warriors given magical powers by the dragons called the Dragoons. After the history lesson, we talk to Shauna some more and decide to go with Lavitz to help fight. We leave the castle via the king's personal McDonald's slide and make our way to Lavitz's house, making a quick stop by the weapons shop to grab a few accessories and Stardust number 4 from a barrel of weapons. Outside Lavitz's house, we grab Stardust number 5 from a well and make our way inside and meet Lavitz's mother. After a quick talk, Lavitz gives Dart a tour of the house, and the two bros have a short discussion on their dreams and aspirations before being called back inside to eat. Once lunch is done, we take a quick peek inside the kitchen and grab Stardust number 6 from the pots and pans shelf. Finally, on our way out of town, we stop and grab some spirits from the bar that's attached to the inn. We then head under the fountain and meet the guy that's camped there. We give him the spirits we just purchased, and he lets us through. We make our way through the sewers to the dock that we just unlocked earlier from the castle and take a quick tour around town. When we reach our stop, we run inside to the back of the storage room and grab the final Stardust from Bale. Jumping back on the boat, we finish the tour and make our way out of Bale, only to have someone run into us. Finally, everything done in Bale, we head out to our next destination, the town of Hoax. Arriving at the fortress town of Hoax, we volunteer to help keep watch. Command is expecting the green dragon we saw earlier to attack. While here, we run up to the first house on the left, go downstairs, and in the fireplace, we find the first Stardust in Hoax. After spending some time with Shauna exploring the town, we return to command, grabbing the last Stardust in Hoax from the left corner, and start our watch. A short cutscene will play out, and as we walk to the kitchen, the town comes under attack. After a quick battle with a group of regular Sandora soldiers, we are faced with the Sandora Elite. The ninja has some basic physical attacks, but can also use magic. Once he gets to about half health, he uses his gimmick ability, Clones. Attacking the real one will dismiss the clones, knowing which is easy. Only the real enemy can use magic. Or, we can just get lucky twice in a row and guess correctly. With the Elite defeated, we are immediately thrown into another boss fight. This one with the Giganto Kongal. Kongal, like Frugal, is a hard hitter. He also has the ability to counter any failed additions. At about half health, he will go into phase 2, where he puts up his axe and punches you with his fist. In this phase, he can damage both members of the party with one attack. Once combat is over, Dart leaps at the Giganto, but is easily knocked back. Kongal is gloating when Rose, the one who likes to talk to themselves from earlier, arrives, flying and wearing special-looking armor. She points at Dart, and then he transforms into a similar form and attacks Kongal. Once things have calmed down, Dart transforms back and passes out. Dart awakes, makes introductions, and then discovers that the dragon had attacked another fort in the marshlands. With only the members in our party able to fight, we head off to kill the dragon. We run to the marshlands and detour up to the 7th fort, the place the dragon attacked instead of Hoax. This area is a gauntlet. Before each battle, we are given the option to run or to fight. If we run, all the enemies respawn, so we must fight them all in one go with no break, culminating in a mini-boss versus a commander. In the fort, we find a few items, including a new weapon for Lavitz, and in the fireplace, another Stardust. Making our way back, we take a left and catch a ride on a boat and circle around to grab a few more items before heading up and having a short conversation with Shauna. Exiting the marsh, we make our way to a volcano. We are quickly interrupted by the main boss of this area, the Firebird. After that short cutscene, we run and hop our way through the volcano. Reaching the end of a cave, Shauna runs off and we are introduced to the Rouge, magical creatures used by the Winglies and fueled by hatred. Of course, even though it's been here for 11,000 years, it wakes up and attacks. The Rouge has multiple body parts that give it access to certain attacks. However, this one is easy enough to defeat, just by attacking the head. Once defeated, we continue on, saving an oddly dressed merchant along the way. In the next room, we are stopped by the Firebird. The Firebird will do some basic attacks and also summon some fireballs it can throw at the party. With it finally defeated, we move on to the Dragon's Nest. We work our way up the map and realize the dragon's poison has affected the forest and could affect us if we stay too long. Shauna has a bit of a panic attack and runs off. We come back to our senses and continue. Stepping on a large spider web sends us falling into a pit. We run around the pit collecting items and touching plants until the way is unblocked. Side note, this is a great place to grind additions. The pool at the start will heal you, and the lizardman enemy can prevent physical damage to itself, allowing you to use additions multiple times on it. Making our way further into the dragon's nest, we discover not only the dragon, but someone from Lavitz's past, and if that wasn't enough, they are also a dragoon. We focus our attacks on the dragon Fairbrand. It may have the most health, but its defense is lower, and it has attacks that can cause poison. The dragoon, Graham, will use wind magic, but other than that, is not too special. With Graham and the dragon defeated, Lavitz becomes the next J Dragoon, and Shauna collapses. This seems to be becoming quite a habit. We make it to Lohan and take Shauna to the doctor. He tells us that the poison is beyond his abilities, but the legendary Dragoni plant may be able to help her. So off we go to discover where we can find the Dragoni plant. But first, we need to collect some stardust. First is in a fireplace behind a secret bookcase door in the building to the left of the inn. While searching for the other stardust, we come across the boss, the merchant from the volcano. He tells us he's heard of the Dragoni plant and gives us a lead to chase. Unfortunately, we will need to remove that strange plant from the dragon's lair in order to get where we need to be. We run back into the boss's shop and climb up to a suit of armor to grab stardust number 2 from Lohan. Outside the shop, there's also angel robes for Shauna once she's back in the party. Down on the ground floor of the city, we come across a street vendor and haggle with him until he gives us a glass bottle for free. To the right, in a basket, we grab another stardust, and to the left, just before leaving town, we grab the last stardust from a barrel. We climb back down into the dragon's nest and make our way back to the very familiar spring and grab some purifying water. Back up at the surface, we jump over the river and purify the odd plant blocking our path. We are now at the shrine. Interestingly enough, the shrine seems to have something to do with the dragons. In the start of the shrine, we check the left and right path, noticing a gold and silver statue and what direction they are facing. There's also a healing spot here, so maybe grind up those additions to the next level. Once the side paths have been explored, we make our way up the center path and come across a number lock and continue on in search of the combination. As we follow the path, we come across a lone chest on a platform. Opening it drops us down into a minecart and on a roller coaster ride. Along the track, we come across signs with some numbers on them. After the ride, we are dumped out in front of the shrine and make our way back to the number lock and enter the numbers we saw on the ride. This opens a ladder that we take, and oddly enough, there are 2 statues just like the ones from earlier. We set them up in the same orientation as their counterparts and make our way up the stairs. After a quick save, we are interrupted by Drake the Bandit. He attacks us as we try to explain ourselves, and the boss fight begins. This fight has 2 gimmicks. The first, Drake will throw 3 bombs onto the field. If they are not killed, then after 3 turns they will explode, damaging the party member they're in front of. The second trap is the wire. When the wire is in front of Drake, he cannot be hurt by physical attacks. As soon as it comes up, target the wire until it's destroyed. Once his health is low, Drake will heal himself for about 1/3 of his health. After the battle, Shirley, the one the shrine is named after, appears. She tells us that there is no Dragoni plant here, but we can use the white-silver Dragoon spirit to remove the poison. But first, she has to know we are worthy. This boss battle doesn't involve combat, but a series of questions. Once they are all answered correctly, she gives us the Dragoon spirit, but does ask us to heal Drake, who may have gotten a bit overzealous protecting the shrine. Once the plot is done, we can go into the inner part of the shrine and grab some gold and a new weapon for Rose. Back in Lohan, we give Shauna the Dragoon spirit, and surprise, she's a Dragoon too. After being amazed by our feats, the doctor recommends we join the hero competition. So sure, there's not a war or anything going on. We make our way to the big tent on the ground floor and enter the tournament alone, as Rose thinks it'll be boring and Lavitz, as a knight, is unable to join. While waiting for the match to start, we come across Haschel, a martial arts expert that is an old friend of Dart's. The tournament consists of 5 battles. No matter if we win or lose, we'll progress to the next fight, as our opponent will be disqualified for different reasons. The first fight is against Gorgaga. His gimmick is that he poisons you at the start of the fight, so equipping a poison guard will negate that. The next fight is with Seraphis. Nothing too special. He powers up for 3 turns partway through. The third fight is with Danton. He will go into a stance, and if attacked, will counter. He also has an all-out attack that drops your health to 1. The fourth is Atlo. He does a repeated series of attacks, ending in an attack that causes fear. We equip a bravery amulet and call it good. Finally, there's Lloyd. He's very fast and impossible to hit, so we get KO'd and take 2nd place. After the fight, we talk to the Sephiroth cosplayer, Lloyd, who doesn't seem too impressed. Then we introduce Haschel to the group, and Dart and Shauna go on a short date. As we prepare to leave Lohan, a wounded soldier arrives and tells us that King Albert has been kidnapped and taken to Helena, and Bale is under occupation. Lavitz loses his mind and is stopped by Haschel. Once things have cooled down, we decide to go save the king. We make it back to Helena, and Lavitz breaks in and drops the bridge for us. Inside, we make our way to a new elevator that we did not have access to before, collect a few items, including the very useful therapy ring. It heals us like Guard does every turn, and a new vest for Shauna. At the top, we find ourselves inside the tower that had a heavy guard presence the first time we visited, and what do you know, we walk right into a trap. While investigating how to escape, we are attacked by the first boss of this zone, the Rancor. Django. This monster hits very hard and has a team-wide attack. Thankfully, all of his attacks are physical, so no magic defense needed. We start by putting him to sleep with a sachet we got from the chest down here. Then, spam magic with Dart and Shauna. Once he wakes up, we go use Lavitz' special, and before it wears off, we cast Blossom Storm. Or is it Rose Storm? Once out of gimmicks, we keep having Dart and Shauna cast magic and Lavitz use his additions. Once the beast goes down, we work our way back up the tower. Back at the level we started, we continue going up until we reach the top. Now it's time for round 2 with Frugal, and this time he's not alone. During this boss battle, Frugal brings his 2 pets, the bird Rodriguez and the dog Guftus. We focus on the bird first, then the dog. With both pets down, the fight becomes much more manageable. While he may have more health and hit harder, without the extra attacks his pets give him, he isn't too much more difficult from his past fight. Once Frugal is defeated, we see the hooded figure take something from King Albert. Lavitz leaps into action, turning into a dragoon and attacking. He takes out a magical looking sword, and to everyone's surprise, it cuts right through Lavitz's dragoon armor. And then, in a shocking twist, we see that the hooded figure is none other than Lloyd. With the king in tow, and now the next Jade Dragoon, the party retreats back to Celis. There, everyone mourns Lavitz, and King Albert tells everyone about the moon gem, the thing Lloyd took from the king. It is then decided that we must end the war once and for all by defeating Emperor Dole. We make our way to the capital city of Kazas. In the building to the left, we find a Stardust. In the building across the street, we grab another Stardust and a few magic items. In the weapon shop, we run into a man claiming to be the one that killed the dragon, who then promptly gets arrested for his tall tales. Once he is escorted away, we can grab Stardust number 3 for this area and also grab some upgrades. We continue to the castle, but instead of trying to cross the bridge, we sneak around the side to the slums. In the first building, we get Stardust number 4 in a bookcase, and by some barrels in the clinic on the bottom floor, we grab Stardust 5 and 6. In the final room, we meet a small child who is the leader of the new Cerado party, a group advocating for the end of the war. After passing his small test, he recognizes King Albert, and provides us with a secret entrance to the castle, in the hopes that we can quickly end the war. We get through the tunnels and up the tower. Once in the tower, we come across some guards patrolling. Just like in Helena, these guards can be avoided, though they don't rely on line of sight. Instead, as soon as you step on their platform, they beeline it towards you. We get past the last 2 guards on the bridge and run across the top to the main hallway of the castle. We go through the right side door and come across 2 scientists that explain how they are using the dragon magic they have access to in order to heal, create magic fires, and also an electricity of sort. When done with the talk, they give us magic oil that allows us to use the elevators. We continue right and go down the elevator. Here we see the source of the magic, a purple dragon, though it appears to be inert. Past the dragon, we have the garbage room for the castle. We sneak our way across to the trash chute, making sure to avoid the trash collector who will drop us into the pit, where there are a few items below if he sees us. Once across, we check the treasure chest and grab the red stone key item. Back at the main hall, we go left this time. Up the elevator and around, we meet the scientist the others warned us about. After making a fool of himself trying to cast magic, he threatens to shapeshift into a monster. Then the screen shakes and flashes and reveals a small dog. We take the blue stone key item from the chest and say bye to the dog. In the main hall for the last time, we go up the central elevator and to the inner ramparts. We go right to find a merchant and a few items, including an upgrade for Hashel if you didn't get it from a random mob drop earlier. We continue around until we get to a small elevator and see 3 guards training. We defeat them one at a time and check the personal elevator they were in front of. Here we meet the commander from the intro cutscene. He thinks Dole has lost his way and apologizes for the acts he has done. We spare him and he gives us the final key item, the Yellowstone. We go back down to the training area and continue right. On the next screen, we go up some stairs and have a mini boss fight with another Sandora elite. Once he is beat, we then go down and across the gondola to the walls where we can grab a few more items and then make our way back to the training area. We jump back in the elevator and go up to the 4th floor. There, we are greeted by a giant statue. A priest or historian tells us that it is a statue of Emperor Dole's late wife. We make our way up to the observation platform and insert the 3 stones we gathered. This opens a door and provides us with access to the top floor. Once on the next screen, we run into Kongo for round 2. This time he's wearing some Giganto armor. Kongo still has the ability to punish failed additions and hits like a truck. Once his health gets low enough, he has a chance to use a magic shield, which makes him immune to magic attacks. With Kongo defeated, we can now go into the next room and face Dole himself, making sure to grab the material shield hidden near the door. The fight with Dole starts off easy. There's nothing too special until, after 600 health, he transforms into the Violet Dragoon. In this form, he hits harder, moves faster, and takes less damage. He also gains access to some new AoE attacks. At around half health, he wraps himself in an electrical shield. We take this time to guard and heal up. On his deathbed, he repents and tells us where the evil, all-powerful Lloyd went off to. With the Civil War over, the party agrees that Lloyd is the real threat on the next leg of the adventure. And as Dragoons, we must stop him. Haschel, as he's about to walk away from the adventure, receives the Violet Dragoon spirit and agrees to join us. We enter the capital city of Tiberoa, Let's. Before continuing the story, we grab a few stardust lying around. The first is on the roof of the small house. Next, we go to the weapon shop to grab some upgrades, and in a weapon container, we grab stardust number 2. We continue up the road into the jewelry store. Here we grab some nice accessories, and in a box of jewels, we find another stardust. We go up and are given a brief introduction to the horrible princess of this kingdom, and Albert notes that her personality seemed completely unlike what he had heard about her. We duck into the final shop and grab a few items and get the next stardust near the telescope sitting in the shop. We make our way back down and over to the tavern. If we cross the small bridge, we are given a short dialogue about Dart's mother, Haschel's daughter, and the name of the bridge. Before walking into the tavern, we grab the last stardust hidden in some boxes next to the door. We walk in and are greeted by the barmaid, Kathy. We let her know we are looking for a Lloyd. She doesn't seem to know anything about him and seems more interested in talking about the moon. She gives us instructions to go learn more from the astronomer Fester. It is now nighttime and we make our way over to the observatory. There, Fester gives us a quick cutscene and information that ties the Black Monster, the moon that never sets, and something called the Moonchild together. After this break, he runs off to go teach Princess Lisa, the younger sister of the princess we saw earlier. After he leaves, we take a quick look through the telescope at the moon that never sets, and then try to make our way out. Unfortunately, we are told that we cannot leave town due to the bandits. Luckily, we come across Nello, who lets us stay and discuss her plan to turn the barrens that surround the town green. In the morning, we regroup. Unable to locate Lloyd, we decide to head over to the next town, Donau. To get there, we have to cross through the barrens. On our way through the barrens, we grab some new armor for Haschel, and are stopped by a bandit named Mappy. This boss fight is fairly easy, with the only hiccup being that Mappy has a can't combat ability. Once defeated, Mappy tricks us and manages to steal Dart's red-eyed Dragoon spirit. After being chewed out by Rose, we decide to continue on to Donut. When we arrive at the Flower City, we check the nearby pool of water for stardust. In the first house we check, we meet Kate, who informs us that her fiancé has gone off to face the bandit. We agree to take the letter she has to the mayor. At the mayor's house, we are let in and the mayor accepts our help, since we have our own beef with the bandits. Before leaving the mayor's house, we check his sink for the last stardust of this town. On our way out, we come across someone attacking some bandits in town. We rush over to make sure she's okay. After introductions are made, Miru decides to come with us and the party reluctantly agrees. With a full 7-person party, we make our way back to Fletz, as we need to get permission from the king in order to go to the area the bandits are hiding. We run back up to the top of the city where the castle is located, and try to convince the guard to give us an audience with the king, but are turned away. On our way back down, we bump into Fester in the item shop, who agrees to talk to us after he finishes his shopping. We bump into him again at the marketplace near the castle, and he takes us back to his house to discuss what needs to be done. Fester agrees to help and leads us into the castle. Once in the castle, we proceed to the throne room, and the king gives us a pass to get through the Valley of Gravity. As we get ready to leave, we are stopped by a maid who takes us to Princess Lisa. Princess Lisa is able to read the stars and asks us to investigate the connection between the bandits and Princess Emily, the mean one from earlier. She also gives us information on another moon object, the Moon Dagger. We are then invited to dinner and asked to stay the night in the castle. In the morning, we run around the tower our rooms were in and check the bottom floor for a stardust. On the way out, we check a statue for the second Stardust. Then we head back through the Barrens and take a left to go to the Valley of Corrupted Threat. Right out of the gate, we grab a Speed Up, a reusable item that increases the speed of a party member for 3 turns. And just a bit further down the path, we come across some rock fireflies. Here, we grind some additions and catch Hashel's Dragoon level up. Making our way to the next screen, we traverse across a 2-screen gravity puzzle with floating rocks and inverted gravity, making sure to grab some magic items, a talisman, and a night helm for Dart. Once we reach the end, we come across a barrage, and this one hasn't been sitting in lava for 11,000 years. We use Miru for some AoE magic to kill the body parts and prevent Barrage from using its insta-kill ability on its left arm, and powerful magic on its right. Then we smack it with our fist and sword until Shauna uses her strange blue magic beams to blast it off the platform. The party then takes a break with everyone worried about Shauna, before moving on to continue to face the bandits. We eventually reach the bandit hideout, the ruined home of the Gigantos. We slip past some arrow traps to grab the bandit's ring for Hashel, and make our way deeper into the abandoned city. We reach a wall and are ambushed. We avoid a few arrows and eventually face our ambushers, though Hashel notices something familiar about the martial art forms one of them is using. Once they are dispatched, Hashel destroys the door blocking our path and we move forward. We reach a crossroads, and while the rest of the party searches through a doorway, Hashel and Miru stay behind to rest. Hashel knocks out Miru and rushes ahead into a large structure further down the path. The rest of the party returns and chases after. Once inside, we see Hashel confront his pupil turned bandit, Garrosh. Mappy joins in the fight, and combined they have some powerful attacks. We focus Mappy first as he has the lowest health, and then turn our attention to Garrosh. Hashel then sends Garrosh across the room with his final punch, but in doing so causes an arm from one of the statues that line the room to come crashing down, threatening to crush us. It is fortunately stopped and tossed aside by the last Giganto, Kongol. Unfortunately, Garrosh cannot be saved. With his final few breaths, he tells us that the Princess Emily is a fake, and the real one is hidden somewhere in the Twin Castle. Also, Kongol tells us that with Dol gone, he wishes to travel with us to find out what kind of leader we can be. After the conversation, we head under the throne to the treasure room where we will find Lyn and our Dragoon spirit. With everything we came to do done, we exit the treasure room and check the right torch for a Stardust and continue on. We then run back through the Valley of Corrupted Gravity and into the Barrens where Lyn invites us to his wedding, then continues to Donau. We decide to go and witness the wedding before making our way back through the Barrens and onward to Fletz. We arrive just as the ceremony to pass on the Moondagger has begun. We rush to the castle, but most of the guards have been replaced by bandits in disguise. We Metal Gear our way through the castle, first up the right-hand tower to Princess Lisa's room, then the left to Princess Emily's room. We split up with some of the party keeping watch outside while the rest search. We examine the painting and suddenly everyone in the room is transported to an odd, magical painted dimension with Princess Emily across a gap from us unconscious. Examining a glowing room, we trigger a bridge to appear. We explain what is happening and Princess Emily joins to help us stop the ceremony. Now that we have the real princess, the bandits flee the castle and we make our way to the Chamber of the Sun. We arrive too late to stop the doppelganger from getting the Moondagger, and a battle begins. Linus moves fast and hits hard, but is unable to stand up to our Dragoon forms and darts Heat Blade. We have Linus defeated and trapped on the balcony, when suddenly she jumps off and we discover that she is a Wingly as she flies away across the bay with the Moondagger. The king, grateful for our aid and previous assistance, allows us to take the pride of the Tiburon fleet, the Queen's Fury, and chase after Linus to return the Moondagger. We make our way back to Donau, but first we take a detour back to Lohan. There, in the market where we bought the glass bottle, the merchant attempts to sell us a shiny rock for 1,000 gold. Fortunately for us, it is the Golden Dragoon spirit, and it reacts to Kongol. Back in Donau, we meet some of the crew and the Commandant and set sail. On the ship, we have a moment with each character, where we see some of what they think and a chance for some individuals to interact with each other. While running around, we grab a Stardust in the interior of the ship, and another in the lower decks by Kongol. Once the final conversation has happened, a phantom ship crashes into and immobilizes the Queen's Fury. After an interesting cutscene with Shauna, we poke our head into the hallway that leads to the captain's quarters. Back on the deck, we are stopped by a handful of ghosts pleading for help, and then head back down the stairs deeper into the ship. Below deck, we chase a strange purple ghost room to room. Each room has a slightly more difficult fight. The first is a trio of skeletons.
The second adds a ghost to the mix. Finally, we corner the ghost in the final room. Here we enter into a pseudo-boss fight. Using Shauna, we nuke their health down and swiftly dispatch the 3 ghosts before they have a chance to overwhelm us with status effects. In the same room, we can trigger the minigame for the ship. By interacting with the shiny spot, 4 ghosts give us a number. Then, in the room closest to the Queen's Fury, we can use 3 of those numbers to open a chest with the number of attempts decreasing after every success. Once we have everything we want, we head back to the captain's quarters. There, the captain tells us that the black monster killed everyone, including the baby princess that was aboard, and asks us to defeat the spirits of the guards and put their souls to rest. Once he disappears, we take the key he left for us on the floor and check the cabin door near the steps down. But before we can get there, a group of ghosts attack Rose. Inside the cabin, we are attacked by a group of knights and a commander. This fight is a bit unique. All the enemies must be dead for the battle to end, but if not defeated after a few rounds, they revive and continue the fight. We are strong enough to spam AoE magic to quickly kill the knights, and then focus down the commander with single target light magic before they come back. Once the fight is done, Shauna rushes out and tells the commander that the fight is over, the black monster is gone. The ghost, however, seems to think that she is the princess and finally allows himself to rest. With the conversation over, we make our way into the next room and discover a cradle that, as we approach it, begins rocking by itself. And the ghost of the nanny appears. She too laments not being able to save the princess, and again, upon seeing Shauna, rejoices that the princess is alive. Once she departs, the ghost ship begins to sink, and we rush to get off the boat. Most of the party quickly makes the jump across to the Queen's Fury. Dart and Rose, however, are unable to make it and fall into the sea. Dart is out cold, but Rose manages to get them to the land and take shelter in a cave. There, Rose reminisces about someone named Zeeg, and we the player are given the knowledge that Rose was somehow around for the Dragon campaign 11,000 years ago. We then see the last battle of the Dragon campaign played out via cutscene. In the morning, the two are found by a boy named Pete. Pete takes the duo back to his house, where we discuss where we are, and it is decided that we should look for the rest of the party in the town of Funo. But to get there, we must pass through the undersea cavern, which is now crawling with monsters. We set off, but not before collecting the stardust from the back area of the inn. On our way out, Pete asks us to escort him and his mother to the town so she can go to the clinic. We agree and set off. In the caves, we are made aware of the strange tidal patterns before continuing through the rest of the cave. Once in the city, Pete and his mother go ahead to the clinic. We stop in to check the painting for Stardust number 1 here, and then check some barrels in the inn for Stardust number 2. With all the Stardust collected, we head to the docks. There, we discover the Queen's Fury already docked and the rest of our party already on land. We rush back to the city, bumping into Miru on the way, and then meet the rest of the party at the inn. After a quick reunion, Dart runs upstairs to see Shauna, and the two have a moment that is slightly interrupted. A very inebriated man near the start of town is talking about a massive monster on Present Island. We conclude that it must be Linus's doing, and decide to check it out. We run back to the undersea cavern and hear a monster roar. But it's not just any monster, it's a dragon. We then go to Lyderia, the place Pete and his mom are from, and talk to the mayor. He tells us he is the one who plugged up the cavern to slow the spread of monsters. He gives us permission to open the gates and we go through. Now back at the undersea caves, we take the newly created path and pick up a few items on the way. We arrive at Present Island. There, we interrupt Lloyd and Linus. Linus stops us from pursuing Lloyd, who now has the moon dagger, but not before he tells us his next location, Millie Sue. Linus then turns into a dragoon and has a dragon with her, Regal. We use a speed up on Dart and use his dragoon form to quickly take out the dragon in a few turns. Then we turn our attention to Linus. We use Dart's additions with the heat blade equipped and have Miru and Shauna use magical items to quickly take her out. With her final breath, she attempts to attack Dart, but Shauna pushes him out of the way for the first strike and Dart deflects the second. With Linus dead, the dragoon spirit she had passes on to Miru. The group heads back to the ship and sets sail back to Donau so we can go back to the castle and inform the king of what has happened. While we are unable to get the Moondagger back, the king still decides to throw a party in our honor for defeating the dragon and stopping the bandits that have been plaguing the country. The group splits up while we wait. Dart and Shauna have a brief moment alone that gets repeatedly interrupted before being told that it is time to get ready, so off we go to collect everyone. find Albert with Princess Emily in her room. We find Hashel and Miru getting kicked out of the kitchen. Rose is in the guest room sulking, and Kongo is in the training room. With everyone together, the ladies are told it's time to get fitted for dresses. Rose and Miru decline, leaving Shauna behind. At the party, Dart attempts to locate Shauna by asking the different party members, before he is finally called away by Rose, who points him in the correct direction. Dart and Shauna close out Disc 2, finally able to have a moment to themselves.
We make landfall in the town of Fernai. Running into the first door on the right, we grab a Stardust. Then we head up and come across a group of heroes and are told about a wolf named Kamui who has attacked the town. After the decree, we head over to the left and down to the boat, and the canal access. There, the man behind the counter at first thinks we are just the heroes come to kill the wolf, but soon recognizes us as the group that defeated the sea dragon. He allows us to rent the boat for free and asks us to see the mayor before we head off. Now on a boat, we grab some new equipment and then sail up to the mayor's house. At the mayor's house, we are told some more details regarding the wolf. First, it was raised by a boy from the village Tio, a friend of the mayor's daughter, Fa. The town believes that Fa was attacked by the wolf, and that has led to the recent uproar and call to arms to kill it. Fa has gone mute after the attack. With the information in hand, we turn to leave, but Fa has taken a liking to Shauna, and the group decides to spend the night at the mayor's house. Shauna hums a song to help Fa fall asleep. Hashel overhears the tune and recognizes it as one his daughter knew, and had said she would sing to her child. Hashel inquires as to where Shauna learned the tune, and she says Dart learned it from his mother. Hashel goes off to ponder this discovery, and Shauna goes up to the roof with Dart. On the roof, they discuss the moon, but upon looking at it, Shauna faints. In the morning, Shauna has recovered, and we set off. Before leaving town, we check a house, unblock a slide, and go down to a storage area to collect Stardust number 2 for this town. Then we head out to the Evergreen Forest. We head north in the forest, collecting a few items along the way before coming across Tio. He runs and hides from us before Kamui appears, and the warriors from the town not too far behind. Kamui, with Tio in tow, escape. We circle back a small way before taking the left fork and continuing north. We eventually come across Kamui's den. There, we attempt to convince Tio to come back home, but one of the warriors appears and tries to attack Kamui. Left with no other option, we fight the wolf. Kamui has fairly strong magical defense, so we focus on our additions and dragon attacks. With Kamui defeated, Shauna, feeling conflicted, uses the Silver Dragon Spirit to heal Kamui, and it returns him to his more puppy-like self that he was before he became aggressive. With the wolf situation dealt with, we return to town to check on everyone. Fa is talking again, and the tension in the town has dramatically decreased. The town guard commander gives us 500 gold for resolving the situation, even though we try to refuse a reward. We dive back into the Evergreen Forest, moving further along the path before Rose cryptically runs off, and Miru unsuccessfully tries to sneak away as well, before telling us she's going to see her parents. We then continue on into Deningrad and start the lore dump of Disc 3. First, we go to the church. There, we learn the genesis story of this world. To summarize, the creator Soa planted the divine tree and it bore 108 fruits. From each fruit came a different species. After that, we are pointed in the direction of the library by finding the head librarian in the church. In the library, we learn some more about the dragon campaign from various books and the librarian. We are then told of a room upstairs specifically to hold the artifacts from the tragedy at Neat, the town Dart is from. We also learn of another survivor from the town, and more about how the people here worship the moon that never sets as a god, how they believe the Moonchild will bring the gods back to the planet, and how the black monster envy and hates the Moonchild. We then cut to Rose, who is for some reason in the town of Neat. There, she runs into two of the sacred sisters of Melisu. We then see how the fourth sister survived the attack and became blind. Despite being blind, we are told she is able to see people's soul. Rose offers to escort the duo back to Deningrad. We then cut to Miru, who has a fireball thrown at her before a Wingly flies down to talk to her. Here we discover that Miru is a Wingly, and this is her home. However, because she left the forest, she has been banished from the town. So she leaves dejected, but learns of a larger threat to the land. We then have a cutscene hinting at a large monster chained in a mountain. Now back with the main party in Deningrad, we head towards the exit to keep looking for Lloyd, when we come across Rose and the Sacred Sisters. We then go to another location after a short conversation about Neat and the Black Monster. We learn that something is going on with Dart, who then has a reaction and something seems to speak to him. Then we are given another cutscene, this one of the dragon that we saw earlier in the mountain doing a flyover of Deningrad. Miru arrives and then we learn that this is the king of the dragons, the Divine Dragon. We deduce that this dragon must be connected to Lloyd's scheme and warn the sisters, who then ask us to speak with the queen. So off we go to the Crystal Palace. In the throne room, we are introduced to the third sacred sister, Miranda, and we explain the information we have on the Divine Dragon, that we are the legendary Dragon Knights, and we think we can stop it, but not alone. We will need the help of the Wingley's Dragon Block staff that Miru agrees to help us get. We go to leave the castle, but notice that Shauna is not with us. We rush back to the throne room and find Shauna in a side room near a Wingley artifact, uncertain to how she got there. Her Dragoon spirit then leaves her and transfers to Miranda, and Shauna collapses. Shauna wakes back up. Once the party is sure she is okay, they head off. Without her dragon spirit, Shauna is unable to come with us and stays at the castle. Before Miranda leaves, Shauna asks her to look after the group for her. With the new party in tow, we head off to the Forest of the Wingleys to get the Dragon Block staff. Getting to where we first met Tio and Kamui, we detour south to go stop by Neat. Unfortunately, we don't get any information, but we do find a Stardust in a lamp. Now going north, Miru discloses to us that she is a Wingley and reveals the hidden entrance to the Wingley village. Once inside, the Wingleys panic, but eventually word comes down that the ancestor wishes to see us. We make our way up the Wingley village, stopping in Garar's, Miru's fiance's, room to grab Stardust 1 and grabbing the second one just to the right of a doorway on the way. Eventually the party is stopped by one of the Bartle brothers that we saw when Miru first came to the village. He attacks us but is easily subdued by our Dragoon power. We continue up the village until we reach the ancestor's throne room. He recognizes the danger that is coming and accepts our help, agreeing to teleport us to the Forbidden Land where the Dragon Block staff is stored, and the location of the battle we saw from Rose's memory in Disc 2. We make our way through the city until we come across a dilapidated Colosseum, where the Wingleys would have other races fight to the death. We climb to the top of the Colosseum and reach a heal pad, so we take some time to grind out our current additions and get everyone to at least Dragoon level 3. Once we are ready, we continue on the path and come across a room with the likeness of some creatures. Going onto the pad beneath, in the order of their fruit from the Divine Tree. Tree image first, then Gigantos, Minotaurs, dragons, humans, finally, Wingleys, unlocks another teleporter. This takes us to a Virage fight, but not just any Virage, a Super Virage. And not just any Super Virage, but the one we saw Shirley shoot during Rose's memory. The Virage is damaged, so we guard for 10 turns, then it self-destructs, clearing the way. Instead of going forward, we double back to the area we had trained additions and take the teleporter to the right. We follow this path, eventually coming to a room with pads that spawn the spinning head enemies. Avoiding the enemies, we work our way to each pad, breaking it and removing an enemy and a barrier that is blocking the exit. Once out the exit, we come across a path reminiscent of the Valley of Corrupted Gravity, picking up a power-up item and a new weapon for Dart. We follow the path and eventually come to the Dragon Block staff. Miru attempts to remove it, but it then comes to life. This battle is against the Grand Jewel, the protector of the staff. This boss has a lot of health, and because it has the staff, we are unable to use our Dragoon form to fight it. We drop the boss down to around half health, and then it de-levels us by 5 levels, and it now casts this at random, putting a timer on how long we have to defeat it. Once it drops below a third health, it heals itself. We eventually prevail and obtain the Dragon Block staff. We rush out of the city in an attempt to get to Deningrad to mount a defense. But before we can get out, we see the dragon fly over towards Deningrad. We are then given a cutscene showing the dragon bombard the city and use its cannon on the castle before flying away. We arrive back at the Wingley city, and the ancestor attempts to teleport us quickly to Deningrad. However, his magic is too weak, and Miru's parents and fiancé arrive to help. We arrive at the shelled city, picking up 2 Stardust at the ruined weapon shop, and the 3rd in the clinic by the gears. We then run up to the ruins of the castle. Most of the people inside are alive, if a bit dazed. We run up through to the throne room, stopping to get another Stardust at some collapsed crystal obstructing our path. The throne room is covered in a blinding light that slowly dissipates to reveal Shauna. We then learn that the light from Shauna protected the people in the castle from the attack, and Shauna again faints. When she wakes up, the party says their goodbyes and heads off to stop the Divine Dragon. But first, we go back to the castle, all the way to the throne room and check the destroyed stairs for another Stardust. On the way out of town, we see Martel again, and grab War God's sash and rainbow earrings for our Stardust. We go back through the forest again and take the path with the guard. We work our way up through the mountain, grabbing some Giganto armor for Kongol, a dragon helm for Dart, and a very useful hidden speed down just before the boss. As we approach the dragon's lair, we discover that someone is already fighting. We rush ahead, stopping for just a brief moment to give everyone an opportunity to compose themselves before preparing to fight. We move forward, only to discover that it is Lloyd fighting the dragon. After a quick back and forth, Lloyd disappears and leaves us to face the dragon. The Divine Dragon fight is a fairly difficult fight thanks to using the Dragon Block Staff. Just like the Grand Jewel fight, our Dragoon form is useless, only doing about 10% of its damage and taking nearly double. We buff Dart and focus our attacks first on the area of the dragon that has its missile attack, the Divine Dragon Ball, and then on the cannon. With that done, we turn our attention to the dragon proper and eventually prevail. As the dragon takes its last breath, Lloyd jumps back in and takes the Divine Dragoon Spirit and attempts to escape. The party gives chase, but he manages to knock Dart and Rose off a cliff with a fireball. Dart recovers quickly, but Rose is still out of it when she mentions something about the Virage, the moon, and the black monster, triggering yet another flashback to Neat for Dart, and leading him to wonder what Rose is not telling everyone. Mira arrives to help fly us back up. We regroup and learn from Miranda about the moon mirror, and then continue to rush back to Deningrad to try to stop Lloyd. While the party is on the way back, we cut to Wink waiting at the edge of the forest. Her and her guards are attacked by the younger Bardell brother, the Wingley brothers that wanted to kill all humans. Wink is saved a second time by Lloyd, who kills the brother and escorts Wink back to the Queen. The party arrives too late to Deningrad. We discover that Lloyd has used his opportunity and kidnapped the Queen. We then head off to the glacier and the Flanville Tower, where the moon mirror is kept, to try to stop Lloyd. At the glacier, we switch Dart over to the Heat Blade since everything here has a water elemental affinity. We make our way through the glacier, picking up items along the way, including a new weapon for Miru. We come across a pair of brother merchants in a cave that will allow us to restock and grab some new armor and weapons for the group. We climb down the walls of the cave and then up onto these odd pathways and are ambushed by a Wendigo. The Wendigo has more health than all of the Divine Dragon's parts combined. The gimmick for this fight is to kill its summons and wait for it to capture a party member. Then, when it spits them out, attack the heart, doing this 3 times. We, however, haven't gotten to stretch our Dragoon wings in a while, and with Dart doing extra damage due to the elemental difference, we focus on buffing him and letting him burn down the Wendigo's HP, before even giving it a chance to use its gimmick. We work our way up the path to eventually reach the Flanville Tower. We go through the short teleporter maze, grabbing a spirit ring and a mage ring on the way. Out of the maze, we have Lloyd with the moon mirror cornered. Lloyd still has the Dragon Buster, which will one-shot you if you go into Dragoon form for more than 1 turn. However, it does this using the insta-kill status, so if the character has a talisman equipped, it can be cheesed. We don't do this. Instead, we choose to buff Albert and have him focus down Lloyd. Lloyd himself is very quick with a high magic defense and some powerful magical attacks. Dart goes for the killing blow, but Wink appears and jumps in front, taking the hit for Lloyd and asking us to forgive him. The rest of the party waits outside the tower while Lloyd, Wink, and Dart talk. Inside the tower, Wink tells us that Emperor Diaz has taken Shauna and has asked us to bring the moon items to him in exchange for her. Lloyd, believing that his part of the task is done, gives us the moon objects and accepts his punishment. Dart, unable to kill Lloyd, sucker punches him and decides to let him live. With the party all together, the Queen and her entourage leave to go back to Deningrad, and Lloyd comes with us to where Emperor Diaz waits, the ruined city of Velweb. Before we leave, we go back through the tower all the way to the top and to the other door in the room, ignore the hologram, and grab the therapist ring. We backtrack a bit through the glacier, and then head further west to the Snowfields. The storm has gotten too rough, and we take shelter in a cave. There, we learn about Lloyd's origin and how he was told by Emperor Diaz that using the moon items, they can unlock the 108th species and regenerate the world. Rose seems to think that's a load of crap. The storm passes and we continue on to Velweb, but decide to take a look down a cliff. After the fall,
where we see some items to grab on the way back up, we come across an odd declaration saying that everyone is forbidden to enter the place where the rebellion against the Winglies began. We learn from Rose that this place is called Fort Nakarada. Before taking a tour of the fort, we walk back up the cliff, grabbing the items along the way, and then fall down the cliff 2 more times to grab the magic shield and a dancer's ring. Now back at the bottom, we go into the fort. We grab the few status items and then come across a platform. Rose has a bit of a flashback, hearing the voices of the crowd and Emperor Diaz's speech that launched the dragon campaign. We then come under attack from a phantom sword. This boss is meant to be more of an in-game boss, but seeing as we kill the Wendigo without using its gimmick, and the 3 targets' health are just a bit over that, I think we can take it. Each target of the Poltergeist has different abilities. The sword can one-hit KO you, the helm can block a command, and the armor uses strong magics. Since the enemies are dark type, we use Miranda's special and AoE magic to deal good damage to all the pieces. We use Dart's final dragon magic to deal massive damage to all the pieces, and then focus down the sword first, followed by the helm, and then finally the armor. With the boss defeated, we get Dart's ultimate weapon, the Soul Eater. This is Dart's best weapon, but it has the negative effect of draining 10% of our HP every turn. To negate this, we keep the therapy ring equipped. With the fort conquered, we head on to Velweb. We make it to the ruined city of Velweb. We follow the path in, eventually coming across the brothers to the merchants we met in the ice cave. We grab some upgrades and items and keep following the path. Rose points out and tells us about the large ballista the humans use to try and shoot down the Wingley cities. We continue deeper into the city. Shirley appears and asks us, after we meet with Diaz, to return and free the souls of the past dragoons that are trapped in their towers that ring the central city. We detour to the ring to grab a stardust from the first tower, and then continue down to the inner part of the city. Along the way, we grab Rose's hairband, a good helm that also has the talisman effect on it. Finally, we come to the throne room of Emperor Diaz. Here we learn that the Wingleys had used the moon items to seal away the 108th species, the true Virage, and the god of rejuvenation that Lloyd had talked about is actually a god of destruction. Lloyd, in anger at this betrayal, attacks the Emperor Diaz, but is easily stopped and thrown to the city below. We then discover that this Emperor Diaz is actually Zeeg, Rose's lover from 11,000 years ago, and Dart's father. He was petrified during his battle with Melbu Frama, but over time the spell weakened, and he woke up 20 or so years ago. Then we learn that the Black Monster has been killing the Moonchild to stop the birth of the Virage, and that the Black Monster is Rose. The Moonchild contains the soul of the Virage, and the moon that never sets is the body. Back in Neat, Rose had attempted to kill who she believed to be the Moonchild, Princess Luvia, but she had a twin sister, Shauna. Zeeg then teleports away with Shauna, ending Disc 3. Disc 4 starts off in a desert, and we are heading towards the Wingley city of Olara. We dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge our way past enemies in the desert and grab a few items. We come to a dead end. There, Rose gives us some more background information, like how her choker has a spell that has let her live for 11,000 years, and breaks the enchantment around the city, showing a green living city in the middle of the desert. Now in the city, it seems the Wingleys already have a good idea of the state of things. We are told to go off to see Charlie. Off we go through the city. We detour to the left to go to the weapon and item shop, grabbing Stardust 1 from the roses and Stardust 2 from the barrels in the weapon shop. We go back to the fork and take the right path. Here we come across another Wingley, tending some little Shop of Horrors-esque plants. We find our final Stardust for the area here and some background information on Melbu Frama and Faust. We continue on the path and arrive at Charlie's house. We learn that Charlie is Melbu Frama's sister, and the one that sent Rose on her task to kill the Moonchild. That the moon items Lloyd had gathered and Zeeg has taken were stores of magic that were meant to be used to break the Signet Spheres that stop the true Virage from being born, though the Signet Spheres can be broken with enough magic. We learned that the spheres were kept in the 5 major cities of the Wingleys. The first in Cadessa, the Forbidden Land, was destroyed during its siege 11,000 years ago. The next in the Birth City, the Crystal Palace, was destroyed by the Divine Dragon. The 3 that still function are in the Magic City Aglis, the Lost City Zenebatos, and the Death City Mayfill. It is decided that we will go to the town of Rouge, where Hashel is from, and where the Magic City Aglis should be nearby. With all this information in hand, the party decides to spend the night in Ulara. During this downtime, we learn a bit about what happened between Rose and Dart after the discovery that she is the Black Monster, and get a glimpse into Miranda's abused past. In the morning, we are teleported back to the Giganto capital and make our way through the Valley of Corrupted Gravity and one last run through the Barrens. We arrive at the Twin Castle and are seen off again, this time heading for Rogue. We arrive and are immediately greeted by the mayor. He asks us to come speak with him and then runs back to his house. Before we do that, we stop by the weapons and item vendors and grab a couple of items found around the village. Especially out back past the mayor, we grab 100 gold and our last stardust. We give them to Martel and she heals her daughter and gives us a vanishing stone that we will use later. Back to the mayor, we let him know our goal of finding the magic city of Aeglis. He mentions a stick that appeared poking out of the ocean. We decide to take a look and head up the cliff. From the top, we see a massive spire sticking up out of the ocean. We head back down to devise a way to get there when Rose feels like someone is watching them. Suddenly, the ground shakes. We rush back up and see the ocean part and a city rising out. Figuring that someone is inviting us in, we head back to the boat and head off to the city. We head in and are greeted by rooms of teleporters. Making it to the next screen, a magical living construct named Ruff greets us and gives us a message from someone named Savan, who seems to know a bit about us, specifically Rose. We follow and go through another room of teleporters and cut across some kind of research room. 3 more rooms of teleporters later, we meet Savan. He tells us he has been working on a solution to our problem. First, he has a kraken to guard the signet sphere. Second, he has developed a new spell to replace the signet. And third, he needs our help to develop a powerful magic that can defeat Zeeg. We agree to help and each member steps up on their platform. Dart is last and stays with Savan. Each member then is shown a problem, and by displaying courage in each scenario, Savan is able to power up his spell. Once everyone's trial is over, we follow Savan across where the spell is being built. Since we answered all the questions correctly, we get the Psychedelic Bomb X, a very powerful reusable magic. We then teleport to where the signet sphere is held. As we begin to prepare, Zeeg's voice suddenly comes from nowhere, and the Kraken starts to act erratically. Zeeg has control of the Kraken and tries to use it to destroy the signet sphere, and we attempt to stop him. This fight is not too bad. We buff Dart with our speed and power up, and his Dragoon special, since the Kraken is water type. The Kraken summons 3 adds, but they are not a problem. We nuke it down. The fight is over, but it's too late. Things in the city are going critical. We are forced to retreat, and Savan stays behind to give us more time. We run back to the teleporter that was prepared for us near the entrance and are teleported to Zenebatos. We exit the teleporter and are greeted by some kind of automation that gives us a warning that the city is under martial law. After it leaves, a creature named Kaloon appears. He informs us that he is a gift from Savan. He functions as our airship from here on, allowing us to fly to some key locations that we have visited before. We then make our way into the city. We stop by the entrance of the Law Factory and buy some new gear. We then head to the Legislative Center, avoiding the yellow guards that patrol on a set path and blue guards that only move when we are on their path. If we get caught, the party is teleported to a prison cell. The crew realizes that Kongol is missing, only to have him burst through the wall and rescue the group. At the top, we wait our turn in line and then ask for Law 703 to be revised and are granted a law production license. This will allow us to access the Signet Sphere. We next head to the Law Factory, dodging more automated guards. At the Law Factory, we hand over the license and then we are sent to the launcher to make our revisions active. We dodge some more guards and arrive at the Law Launcher and activate our revision. Now, if we wanted, we could revise more laws. 666 stops all minor battles in Zenebatos. 659 removes guards from paths. 640 allows us to skip standing in line to wait for other creatures in the Legislative Center. On the way through the city, we grabbed a few items in chests. We then head to the top of the teleport room and go to the Signet Sphere. We arrive at the location where the Signet Sphere is being held, but things are already not quite correct. We enter the courtroom in front of the Signet Sphere and are greeted with a boss battle. This battle is not too bad. It is a 3v3, each one having its own gimmick. Celebus can heal its party and apply status effects to yours. Vector has the most health and focuses on physical damage. And Kabuya can apply Can't Combat and will insta-kill a party member on its death if it is the last alive. We trivialize the fight by buffing Miranda and using Psych Bomb X, beating Vector in one go and dropping the rest into red health, only to be defeated with a follow-up magic item.
With that done, we run up to the Signet Sphere, only to discover that we are too late. Zeeg has destroyed it. We make our way back to the teleport room and discover that we need to change the law in order to teleport to Mayfill, the location of the final Signet Sphere. We run back through the lawmaking process and then return and teleport to Mayfill, the Death City. We arrive in Mayfill to find the city crashed, but still operating. In the first room, we come across the spirit of Pharaohbrand, the green dragon we fought in Disc 1. He has the same moveset as the last time we fought him. He now just has better stats. We quickly beat him and move on to the next area. We make our way across some light bridges, collecting some items, and eventually arrive in the next room. This one is housing the spirit of Rigol, the blue dragon from the end of Disc 2. Again, the same moves, just a bit stronger. We cross some more light bridges and collect some more items and arrive in room 3, this time with the spirit of the divine dragon. And again, no new moves, but the dragon and the party are not weakened by the dragon block staff. With the final dragon spirit laid to rest, we move on to try to find the Signet Sphere. In the next area, we find a room with a transparent floor. Light is shooting up, and anywhere it turns red is solid and can be walked on. We make our way counterclockwise around the room, following the light path, and arrive at a teleporter. Exiting the teleporter, we find Lavitz. After a quick reunion, something seems to happen to him. He transforms into some kind of demon and runs away. We follow and attempt to help him when he attacks us. This fight starts with us unable to do damage to Lavitz, but Dart will occasionally talk to him, and he will turn around, allowing us to attack the creature that is attached to his back. After enough damage, the real enemy appears, Zakwel the Demon. He has a strong physical attack and high magic defense. The main trouble comes from his can't combat attack. We quickly defeat him and he retreats back into Lavitz. The now possessed Lavitz charges us. Dart refuses to fight his friend, tosses his sword aside, and Lavitz stops, returning to himself for a moment and stabs himself through the chest, destroying Zakwel. As his last act, he provides a lift of souls to take us to the Signet Sphere. We have reached the point of no return, so we turn around and head back out of the city to resolve some unfinished business in the world. You may remember the first time we came through Velweb, Shirley asked us to take care of the spirits of the ancient dragoons she has brought to the city. Well, now it's time to handle that. We fly to Deningrad and run back to Velweb and to the towers next to the save point. The first ancient dragoon spirit we come across is Syvel. He is the ancient Jade Dragoon. His stats are almost identical to Albert's. A quick few rounds of buffs and debuffs, and then we quickly take him out with our dragoon abilities. The next dragoon spirit is Damia, the blue sea dragoon. While you may think this half mermaid has stats like Miru, you would unfortunately be wrong, as her magic attack and physical attack are equal. This is balanced out by her lower health. She gets off the first attack, bringing some of our party into red health. After a few turns of struggling to keep up, we manage to turn the tide, get our repeatable items out, and then use dragoon form to end the fight. Belzec is the next dragoon spirit. Just like Kongo, his magic defense is near non-existent. For this fight, we buff Rose and just have her throw out our supply of magic items. The final dragoon spirit is Kazas. He is the most difficult of the dragoon spirits, with high stats all around. We spend the first few turns throwing out buffs before transforming into a dragoon and chipping away at his health. With all the dragoons laid to rest, we turn our attention to the last optional boss of the game, Faust. Before that, we need to grind. Now, strictly speaking, you don't need to grind quite as much as we did here, but this fight can be the most difficult in the game. A good spot to grind is the desert, the death frontier. Enemies respawn after every fight and run towards you, so you can just stay still and fight after fight will happen. What are we grinding for? Well, first, just for completion's sake, we want to 100% all the additions. But the real goal is to get enough gold for 3 legend casks and 3 armor of legends. These are 10,000 gold each. With these things acquired, we head back to the tower where we fought Lloyd, and then to the room where we grab the second therapy ring. The vanishing stone in hand, we dispel the illusion of Faust and make our way into the land of Taboo. A few teleporters later, and we enter the central chamber and grab a now useless dragon helm. We proceed through the next teleporter puzzle and arrive in a big room with 3 doors. As we approach, the middle of the ground shakes and the bridge collapses. We jump back and find 3 different ways into the room before we are finally able to reach the middle platform. Then it too falls and we land in the final room where we face the Wingly General, Faust. As said before, Faust is a very tough fight. He has very high magic attack and defense, no elemental weakness, and the most health of any boss we have faced so far. We take the battle with all our legendary equipment and our fastest party members, who have some of the highest magical defense. With all that, Miru still nearly gets one shot during the fight. Every one of Faust's turns, he gets multiple attacks. We take some time to buff, debuff, and get our footing, thanks to the high dodge chance of our legendary items, before using Psych Bomb X in our additions to take him down. With the last of the optional content done, we head back to Mayfill to finish the fight. Back at the Spirit Lift, we arrive at the top where the Signet Sphere is located. Zeeg appears, and an attempt is made to stop him, but it's not enough. We then see a cutscene of the moon crashing into the Divine Tree, and the party flying on Cahoon. The moon then spews out hundreds of Rouge that shoot the party down at the base of the tree. We then make our way up the tree. We reach a dead end where we can jump into the life stream that is feeding the moon and ride it partway up the tree. Kongo's hard landing startles an odd bug. We continue further up and are eventually attacked by the bug we saw earlier. This is one of the few true multi-phase bosses. It starts with the caterpillar, which is fairly easy but can inflict some status effects. Once it's defeated, it becomes the pupa. This phase has very low health and no attacks. The final phase is Imago. This is the real fight. It has a high magic attack and a can't combat ability. With this unreleased fruit defeated, the party takes another ride and arrives at the moon. The environment shifts around us as the god of destruction gathers more energy. The creature's heartbeat always in the background. After a flash of light, we appear to be in some forest. We make our way through the forest until it turns into a snowy landscape. There we are introduced to the theme of this section. Each character will have their own confrontation. The first is Miranda, who faces the memory of her mother leaving her. Nearly all of these fights have the same structure. A boss that you cannot kill and just have to outlast, and maybe a text prompt that needs to be hit to continue. After Miranda realizes that her mother is not a horrible monster that selfishly abandoned her, we are able to continue on walking through a passageway and arriving in what appears to be an inn in Bale. There, Hashel notices a girl that walks through a mirror. We follow and are taken to a Zenebatos village. Again, we spot the girl and follow her deeper in. Eventually, we see her jump into a portal. Hashel asks to go alone from here. Hashel faces off against his daughter Claire, who is possessed by a war god. Just like Miranda, Hashel survives long enough to realize that he pushed his daughter too far and centers himself to remove the demon that possesses her. We head back to the inn, and this time we go outside and down some stairs and arrive up in the sky. As we attempt to cross the clouds, we come across an attack from a dragon. The party awakes in the Gigantos Holy Land. Rose and Dart are missing. We see a reenactment of Dole finding Kongo as a child. We go further into the city, and Kongo splits off from the group. He arrives in the central chamber to challenge his brother. This fight is very similar to the first time we fought Kongo. Kongo beats his brother and proves to himself that he is worthy to lead the Gigantos, and we also pick up the Golden Dragon armor. If we didn't already have his Dragoon Spirit, we would also gain it here. We go back out and arrive at another portal that takes us back to the Zenebatos village, and then the inn in Bale. We then transition over to Rose and Dart, where we learn a little bit more about dragons and about Rose. Michael, the dragon that attacked us, was her vassal dragon, and its mother is the one that gave Rose its Dragoon Spirit. Here again, we must survive until Rose tells us the dragon's weak spot. Unfortunately, its weak spot is only exposed after a specific attack. Once that happens, we defeat the dragon and make our way back to the rest of the party. Back in Bale, Albert realizes he needs to confront his uncle. We head off to the castle and the guards let us in. The confrontation leads to a fight, and Albert breaks both of Dole's swords before attacking him directly. With Dole defeated, Albert forgives him for his betrayal, and the party goes back to the area in the sky. We make our way through the clouds and arrive at a floating Wingly castle. We attempt to cross the light bridge, but it is deactivated, leaving Miru to go alone. Inside, she confronts the avatar of the Wingly god we caught a glimpse of in statue form in the Wingly village. She rejects the Wingly supremacy it represents. We survive and get through all of the dialogue. The rest of the party joins, and we make our way up to the moon's core. We follow the block path and end up in a room with the destruction of Neat in the background. It flashes to a picture of a Virage, and we hear the voice of the god of destruction. We march on and come face to face with a Super Virage, and this one does not self-destruct in 10 turns, and is at full power. Destroying the head or the body will end the fight, but the head has a final attack that you will need to guard against if you want to kill it that way. After the battle, we approach the light and go through another rip in space, and arrive at the final save point. We make sure we are ready and then go to the final screen.
We square off against Zeeg, who has taken the red Dragoon spirit, and we attempt to stop the birth of the god. Zeeg has the same Dragoon abilities that Dart had, though with a bit more oomph to them. We buff up and are quickly able to defeat him. With the battle over, the birth of the god is near, and that is when the next revelation happens. The spirit of Melbuframa leaves Zeeg's body. He had possessed the Dragoon spirit 11,000 years ago. When the black monster attacked Neat, Zeeg had attempted to use the Dragoon spirit and had unleashed Melbuframa. With this new discovery out of the way, Melbuframa then replaces Shana as the heart of the god of destruction and takes control over it. That is when surprise number 2 happens. Lloyd arrives and attempts to stop the god. After a brief fight, Lloyd is defeated. Unable to continue the fight, he passes off to us the Dragon Buster, Rose's ultimate weapon, and the Divine Dragoon Spirit to Dart. With these in hand, we go off to the last fight. Melbuframa has 4 phases, and each phase has its own unique stage that depicts different times in the life cycle of the planet. The first phase is the Embryo. Here he has 4 tentacles that attack the party members one at a time, and then it pauses to guard himself. Phase 2 is the first generation. His basic attack is a light whip that does okay damage. The main gimmick of this phase is that he can absorb one party member. The party member does not take damage while absorbed and eventually will be spit out. Phase 3 is the 4th generation. During this phase, he can control the day and night cycle, with different attacks depending on the time of day. During the night, he can summon a bomb star which does damage to all party members. During the day, he can summon a giant fireball. The last phase is the 6th generation. Here he can use an ability like the Dragon Block Staff that makes your Dragoon form useless. He also has an insta-kill ability during this phase. Finally, he can replace a party member with a monster that has some unique abilities. Once the monster dies, the party member returns. With this final form defeated, we transition to a cutscene. The moon begins to shake and fall apart. Dart rushes over to help Shana, and Melbuframa rises up in a new twisted form. Rose and Zeeg decide to sacrifice themselves to let everyone else escape. The rest of the party flies and blasts their way out of the moon just in time. With the moon destroyed, Dart calls out for Rose and Zeeg. We then get a series of scenes showing how everyone is doing sometime after they save the world. Ashel is back in Rogue, teaching again, and Kongol is with him. Miru is touring the world with her fiancé. Albert marries Princess Emily. Dart returns to Lavitz's home and leaves a drink out for him. Finally, we see Shana and Celis as Dart arrives, the town being rebuilt.
And that is all for The Legend of Dragoon. Overall, a really fun game. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone that worked on this game. It was really fun. It was one kind of the best looking games for PlayStation 1. Some of the areas that were a bit rough. The voice acting was could have been better. I looked up some of the English voice actors. For some of them, it appears to be their only credit. I don't think the voice acting is necessarily a product of bad voice actors. I imagine kind of the English voice actors weren't given much direction or reference to what they were doing. That was kind of common at the time, especially on things dubbed over from Japan, and kind of led to things like dubbed anime being seen as kind of lower quality. There's also kind of a lack of in-game content. You have just the Poltergeist fight, the Ancient Dragoons, and Faust. None of them require kind of anything special, or I guess Faust is kind of the closest to needing that. But the Ancient Dragoons and the Poltergeist, like the Poltergeist we did just in line with the story, and the Ancient Dragoons were kind of the first thing we did once we reached the point of no return. So there kind of wasn't anything to work towards or for. There also isn't much in the way of in-game gear. You have the Legend armor and helm, but those are kind of just like the defaults you get to trivialize Faust. There's also no ultimate weapons other than for Dart and Rose. Dart's is obviously from the Poltergeist fight, and then Rose we get right at the very end. Literally as we're facing the last boss, we get her ultimate weapon, so we kind of don't get to really use it. And Rose's doesn't particularly offer any unique abilities. Like Dart's is very strong, but it takes some of his health, but Rose's is just
kind of a direct upgrade. It'd been interesting to get it maybe before Mayfill, so that we could use it against the dragon spirits, and it, you know, kind of gives a buff against those. That would have been interesting. But none of the other characters have an ultimate weapon. But yeah, other than those things, the gameplay's fun, it's unique. Magic being limited to items was kind of interesting, especially with the low item cap, but it's kind of balanced out by the magic being so ridiculously powerful. I would have liked to have maybe like 1.5 as much items as we could, especially by the end game, something to upgrade your inventory just a little bit. Because by the end game, you have so many repeatable items. You have your power-ups, your speed-ups, your power downs and speed downs, your Psych Bomb X's. It'd been cool to get something kind of like a repeatable heal item as well. Would have been pretty cool. Since we have a repeatable damage item, just a repeatable heal item may also have worked. But yeah, overall, I had a really great time. It was a lot of fun. If you enjoyed this video, you can check out Cast Run of Item Only, which kind of shows just how broken items really are. And if you're interested in more long-form Let's Plays, this entire thing is archived and in a playlist. And you can also check out Miss Dragon Gaming, who is currently playing through Final Fantasy 16 and Dragon Age Inquisition. But yeah, sorry this took so long. At the time when I first started this, I had a full-time job, full-time plus job that was kind of taking up a lot of time. But yeah, we're done, so we'll get back to doing some more RPG videos. I think next we're going to do Knights of the Old Republic, and the turnaround time between streaming those and the next video should be much shorter. So until then, thank you for watching.